You already know who you're meant to be. You've always known, not in your words, not in your thoughts, but in that deep primal rhythm beneath the noise, the feeling that haunts you in silence, when the world quiets down and the truth gets loud, the version of you that moves without hesitation, speaks without apology, creates without fear, leads without needing to be followed. That version of you, it's not a fantasy. It's a memory, a soul-deep recollection of who you were before you were broken, before they told you to be realistic, before you were taught to sit still, smile small, play nice, and stay within the lines drawn by people who never even built their own life. But something inside you has always rebelled against that. Something wild, something sacred. The part of you that remembers what you came here to do. Not just exist, but embody destiny. And that's a tragedy, isn't it? Not that we aim too high and miss, but that we aim too low and hit. We become loyal to the lesser self. We rehearse mediocrity until it becomes muscle memory. We live as ghosts of our potential because we forgot that becoming isn't passive. It's an act of war. You think your future will show up when the time is right? You think it will arrive when you finally healed enough, read enough, rested enough, waited long enough? It won't. It's not coming because it was never supposed to. You are supposed to go to it. And the only way to arrive there is to act like the person you're meant to be. Now, not someday. Now. And acting doesn't mean faking. It means choosing. It means taking the weight of who you could be and carrying it on your shoulders like it's already yours. It means showing up today with the integrity, the boldness, the conviction of the future self you say you believe in. Because belief without embodiment is a lie we tell ourselves to avoid the discomfort of transformation. You think you'll feel ready one day? No. Readiness is a myth. It's a trap designed to keep you in cycles of almost. But becoming is not about being ready. It's about being willing. Willing to fail publicly. Willing to speak before your voice is steady. Willing to move when your legs are still shaking. Willing to make decisions like the future is already here. That is how you collapse timelines. That is how you override destiny. Not by waiting, by walking like it's already done. Carl Jung said, you are what you do, not what you say you'll do. And that truth should break you, because most of what you've said, you never became. Most of what you've dreamed, you've delayed. Most of what you know you are, you've postponed for the illusion of safety. But safety is not the goal. Wholeness is. And you cannot be whole while abandoning the self that came here to change everything. You're not here to survive. You're here to remember who you are in full. And the only way to do that is to act like it now. So how does that version of you move? How do they breathe? How do they walk into rooms? How do they respond to doubt, to rejection, to failure, to fear? Because if you knew you were chosen, you would act like it. If you knew your success was inevitable, you'd move like it. You'd stop flinching. You'd stop hesitating. You'd stop editing your power to make insecure people feel more comfortable. But you've been tricked. Tricked into thinking humility means shrinking. That confidence means arrogance. That self-belief is dangerous. That your fullness is a threat. And they're right. It is a threat to everything that was built to keep you quiet, to the people who only loved the weak version of you, to the systems that depend on your obedience, to the illusions that shatter under the weight of your presence. Act like the person you're meant to be, and everything false will fall away. Every shallow relationship, every low frequency distraction, every habit built on fear, it will all dissolve because it was never designed to follow you where you're going. But first, you must step. Step like it's already yours. Not because you've earned it, but because you've remembered it. And what you remember, you reclaim. What you reclaim, you embody. And what you embody, you become. It's not the world that needs to change. It's you. The way you carry yourself, the way you treat your time, the way you speak your truth, the way you walk like your name is already carved into history. Stop shrinking to fit the script. Burn the script. Write a new one in blood and fire and certainty. One where you are no longer waiting to feel powerful, but acting like power itself. Because acting is how the psyche reprograms. Because the subconscious doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you do. So do differently. Walk into the gym like your body's already a temple. Step into your work like the deal is already signed. Sit down to write like the words have been waiting for you to return. Speak like your voice is prophecy. Breathe like your life is holy. Because it is. But you've been treating it like an afterthought. A someday. A maybe. A if they let me. They don't need to let you. You're the gate. You're the standard. You're the one who decides when it begins. And it begins the second you start acting like it's already done. Because when you do, your mind gets the message. And when the mind gets the message, the body follows. The habits shift. The identity locks in. The world rearranges. Because you did. And people will ask you, what changed? You did. Not overnight, but in 1,000 invisible choices, to no longer live as a watered-down version of your potential. You chose to act, to lead, to rise, to break, to rebuild, to embody. And that choice, it wasn't a moment. It became your movement. Because once it becomes your movement, you stop chasing moments. You stop chasing highs, dopamine spikes, external milestones that prove you're becoming something. You stop chasing the world's applause because you're too busy becoming your own confirmation. The person you're meant to be is not a role to play. It's a reality to embody. And you don't step into that reality by accident. You step into it with precision, with obsession, with a level of self-respect so ferocious. It scares off anything not rooted in excellence. But let's be honest, you played both parts. You've been the warrior and the wanderer, the builder and the breaker, the visionary and the victim. And somewhere along the way, you started believing that the cracks in your armor meant you weren't worthy of carrying the crown. But you forgot the crown was never made for the flawless. It was made for the forged. And you've been forged in heartbreak, in failure, in nights so dark, even your shadow left. And yet, you're still here, still breathing, still burning, still becoming. So stop asking if you're worthy. Start asking if you're ready to walk like you already are. And let's talk about psyphoria. That electric state of alignment where thought, action, and soul collide into singular clarity, where your entire being is vibrating on the frequency of who you've decided to be. No doubt, no distortion, no more playing tug of war with your past, because the person you're meant to be isn't a future self. It's a real you underneath the fear, the noise, the habits you inherited but never questioned. To reach syphoria, you have to silence the static, all of it, the opinions, the excuses, the scarcity stories playing on loop in your head, because syphoria can't coexist with confusion. It lives in clarity, and clarity only comes when you act like the person you're meant to be long enough that your old self no longer recognizes you. You want your mind to change? Change your posture. Change how you walk into the room. Change how you introduce yourself. Not with a job title, but with the energy of someone who doesn't need to prove anything anymore. Because when you become the proof, the world has no choice but to reflect it. Let's go deeper. Mindset isn't about thinking positively. It's about thinking precisely, about building a mental environment so high in standard that even your inner critic gets quiet. Because now there's a new ruler on the throne, and that ruler doesn't entertain chaos. You don't get the luxury of being passive anymore. You've outgrown that. Passivity is a betrayal when you know who you're supposed to be. So don't speak like you're unsure. Don't walk like you're undecided. Don't act like you're waiting for something outside you to declare you're ready. You're ready when you say, I no longer need to be rescued. I'm not waiting to be discovered. I'm not seeking a map. I am the map. And once you say it, once you live it, your beliefs start bending. Bending to match the energy you bring to the moment. Because belief isn't just faith. Belief is a frequency. It's how you show up in the small things. It's how you do what needs to be done, even when no one's watching. You act like the person you're meant to be when the world is quiet, when the lights are off, when it's just you and the mirror, and the silence between promises kept and promises broken. So check your patterns. Do they match the self you speak of? Do they match the life you say you're building? Because if they don't, you don't have a problem with discipline. You have a problem with honesty. And honesty is the beginning of all transformation. Because you can't fake alignment. You can't trick the soul. You can only act in accordance with it, or suffer the slow erosion of your potential. And that's the real pain, isn't it? Not the hustle, not the pressure, but the pain of knowing you were meant for more and watching yourself postpone it. That's the ache, the dull throb of, almost, the psychic fatigue of living just under what you're capable of. But that ends now, because now you understand this isn't about motivation. It's about identity. It's about building the kind of relationship with yourself where self-betrayal is no longer an option. Because the self you're meant to be, they are waiting, not in the future, but in the next choice, the next sentence you speak, the next hour of work you do in silence, the next decision to say no to comfort and yes to becoming unrecognizable to your past self. This is the difference between those who dream and those who build, those who wait and those who walk, those who hope for alignment and those who embody it. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be precise. You don't need to feel inspired. You need to be in integrity. You don't need another affirmation. You need to act like the person who already lives in the world you're trying to create. Because when you act like them, you train your nervous system to accept it. You train your mind to expect it. And the universe, it follows your expectation, not your desperation. So raise the standard. Lock into the vision. Act accordingly. Walk like your name is written in fire. Speak like your soul has been crowned. Move like this world was always meant to respond to you, because it is. Because the world doesn't respond to the loudest voice. It responds to the clearest signal. And clarity doesn't come from overthinking. It comes from alignment, from the ruthless decision to stop walking in two directions, to stop dancing between potential and permission, to stop asking, what if I'm not ready? And start declaring, watch me anyway. Act like the person you're meant to be, and you will destroy every false timeline you've been stuck in. Not by force, but by frequency. Because nothing false can survive in the presence of someone who walks in truth. Not everyone will understand this. They'll call it arrogance. They'll say you've changed. They'll miss the version of you who needed their validation to breathe. Let them miss it. Let them mourn the version of you that made them feel taller because you kept yourself small. Let them gossip. Let them guess. Let them go. Because power, real power, requires loss. You don't get to take everyone with you. You don't get to explain the vision to people who only see with fear. You don't get to drag dead weight into destiny. So release them with love, with fire, with finality, and keep walking. Because your becoming isn't a group project. It's a solo mission. And every time you act like the person you're meant to be, you take one step closer to the life that was always waiting for you on the other side of hesitation. This is where discipline becomes divine. Not a cage, but a crown. Not restriction, but revelation. The sacred order you impose on yourself to honor the power you carry. Because the person you're meant to be doesn't rise by accident. They rise by a ritual, by doing the thing again and again and again, until it becomes who they are. Not just what they do, but what they embody. And embodiment is what separates the seekers from the sovereign. Because seekers are always looking, but the sovereign acts, even when it's dark, even when it's hard, even when the evidence hasn't caught up yet. They act anyway, because they don't need the world to believe in them, when they've already decided to believe in themselves. Carl Jung said, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. You've been dreaming long enough. Now it's time to awaken. To walk like the vision already exists inside you. Because it does. And if it lives in you, you don't wait to feel ready. You train for it. You prepare like it's sacred. Because it is. Because you are. So stop acting like a stranger to your own greatness. Stop approaching your life like a visitor. Stop knocking on the door of your future when you already hold the key. You're not here to blend in. You're here to redefine what it means to be fully human. To live as a walking permission slip for everyone else to remember who they are too. But that only happens when you go first. When you act like the person you're terrified and thrilled to become. The one who doesn't flinch. The one who doesn't fold. The one who doesn't need an invitation to show up fully. So, show up. Not tomorrow. Not when the fear is gone. Not when they finally understand you. Now, in the room you're already in, with the tools you already have, with the body you already live in, with the breath you just took. Because this is it. This is the moment the old self dies. Not with fireworks, but with a whisper. I'm done waiting. And in that whisper, your entire life begins to move, to shift, to rise. Because when you act like the person you're meant to be, you become unavailable for anything less. The job, the relationship, the habits, the conversations, the identities. You stop auditioning. You stop explaining. You stop shrinking. Because you finally remembered you were never meant to be discovered. You were meant to be activated by truth, by action, by choice. So choose now. Step now. Speak now. Become now. And let the world adjust to the version of you that never needed to be asked twice to rise.